All right, welcome and thank you for joining us for our info session today on exploring options in environment, energy, and sustainability. My name is Scott Williams. I'm with the Wisconsin Energy Institute, and we'll be talking about the Engineering for Energy Sustainability Certificate. And I'm joined by Becky Ryan.
Hello, everyone. I am Becky Ryan. I'm with the Nelson Institute for Environmental Studies, and I'm here today representing the Environmental Studies major, the Environmental Studies Certificate, and the Sustainability Certificate.
So this info session is being recorded, so you can view it at any time, and we'll be using it for future info session sharing opportunities. So we'll take questions at the very end of our presentation. Anything else, Becky, you want to say before we launch into it?
No, just, we're happy that you're joining us, and I'm really excited to share our information.
Yeah, so we represent really the interdisciplinary environmental programs that are available for undergraduate students at UW-Madison. And to sort of set the stage for why we think it's so important to enroll in one of these programs, this is a graph that comes from a research paper from about 12 years ago that talked about sort of planetary boundaries or safe operating space for humanity. And you can kind of see from this diagram, there's lots of different environmental concerns that are going on, and some like biodiversity loss or the nitrogen pollution. We've sort of overstepped our bounds in terms of what's kind of considered stable for our environment. Some are still within our sort of planetary boundaries in that green circle. Others we don't quite know yet what those boundaries are. But you can see that there's lots of different environmental concerns, whether that's climate change or biodiversity loss or ocean acidification, that we need lots of smart young people to be working on these issues. And it doesn't matter what sort of walk of life you're coming from.
Yeah, I'll add that I think this graphic really represents the diversity of the challenges that are in front of us, and that all majors, all disciplines, all talents are needed at the table in order to move forward on these. So yes, we need the engineers and the scientists, but we also need the social scientists and the humanists, people who can write or speak the language or do the economic analysis of it. So there's so much to work on. This graphic just creates a small amount of anxiety in me, but mostly hope that, regardless of what that other major is, there's a place for you to add in an environmental studies component to that to really help move the dial on some of these issues.
Yeah, and so we mentioned we represent 4 different programs that are available to undergraduate students on campus. And we'll go into detail with each one, but this is just an overview of the 4 different options before we launch into the details. And sort of regardless of which of these 4 that you decide to pursue, we're of the mindset that any one of them is something that's very useful and very needed as we deal with these environmental issues. And another big benefit that I think is developing what is termed the T-shaped individual. So if you look at the graphic there, the vertical part of that T is your degree. So you get disciplinary depth in something, and that's kind of your specialization, what are your core or transferable competencies. But then these programs represent the breadth, the interdisciplinary breadth. And so, they demonstrate the passion that you have for environmental issues, as well as well-roundedness. So as Becky talked about, you're not just taking from the sciences and engineering, you're also pulling from the social sciences and humanities. My cat, if you can hear, is about to join us as well. So, what the great thing about being part of these programs is that it draws from so many parts of campus that you create your own interdisciplinary community. So you get to learn from fellow students, both in the classroom and outside the classroom, and you're pulling from your disciplines into the conversation. And so that allows you to help work across different disciplines in the future working world, where these challenges are very complex and need folks from many different disciplines to work on.
Yeah, I'll add that there's power in numbers. and there's power in interdisciplinary approaches. So the world always does its best work when there are multiple voices at the table, which is why it is very important that all majors are represented in our programs. So, I've been an advisor for many years on campus. A very common question for me is, okay, so I know I have to have another major with environmental studies, but what's the best one? Like, give me the inside scoop. What's the best one? And really, the answer to that question is whatever is the best one for you. We really absolutely need all voices at the table. So whether that means you're a Spanish major, German major, Russian major, or civil engineering, mechanical engineering, or conservation biology, geography, political science, economics, all of those degree focuses are going to bring something to the table for the environmental issues. So really, it does fit with any academic program on campus, and we thrive on having a very interdisciplinary group of students. What I like to say is an ideal future network for our students is to be able to know other students who care about the same issues, but perhaps bring different strengths or talents to the table. That's how things are going to get solved.
Right. So Becky, I'll turn it over to you to talk a little bit more in depth about the Nelson Institute programs.
All right, excellent. So the Nelson Institute is a little hard for students to understand on campus because, of course, there are the undergraduate schools and colleges that everybody's familiar with. The letters in science, engineering, business, nursing, etc. So where does the Nelson Institute fit in with that? The Nelson Institute is one of many research hubs on campus. We've been around for 50 years now. Have always been in the business of interdisciplinary research around the topic of the environment. It was only in the last 10 years that we actually added the environmental studies major to the mix. And the beauty of adding a major into a research center like the Nelson Institute is that even though the major is relatively young, we have a powerful 40 years before the major even launched of master's and PhD students who are doing really incredible things in many environmental areas. In fact, Nelson Institute has one of the biggest cohorts of UW-Madison alumni in Washington, D.C., which is quite amazing when you think about all the change makers that are in that area. So our students who are getting the certificate or the major actually also have a very deep network of Nelson Institute alumni who are out there and willing to help and connect students to these programs. So we're here today talking to you about our undergraduate programs, but part of the strength of our undergraduate programs actually stems from the longstanding strength of our graduate and professional programs and our research centers that are attached to the Nelson Institute. So for 50 years, Nelson has been about interdisciplinary education and research to help create future leaders that are really going to be able to move the needle on our environmental issues that we're facing. A little bit more about the major is that is our sort of meatiest program that we offer. We're unique on campus in that the environmental studies major must always be done along with another undergraduate major, what we refer to as coordinate majors. And this is because of what we were just saying about a couple slides ago. We need all academic skills and talents at the table with the focus on how it affects environmental issues. So it doesn't matter if you're a humanities major of some sort, or a social science major, or a biophysical, natural science major. All of those talents are going to bring something to the table. And then we're sort of filling in around the edges with how to think about those talents from all these different environmental perspectives. So we do literally have majors all across campus in every school and college. And like I said earlier, is a really powerful future network for our students. So it is very intentional on our part to introduce students to a range of environmental thinking that allows you to think bigger and more fully about the subject at hand. So a nice little overview here of our Nelson Institute programs. So you'll see that in the environmental studies, we have both a major and a certificate. The environmental studies certificate is like a mini major of sorts. So the major is a minimum of 30 credits. The certificate is 15. You can see the outline of what the requirements are there. You can see actual full details and course options for each of those categories on the Nelson Institute webpage. So if you want to see samples of the different courses, there are more than 100 different options for students to choose from. And then our newest certificate program, which is about, I think, maybe 6 years old now, is our sustainability certificate, which is actually a 12 credit certificate, but also requires a community engagement project that allows students to actualize some of their classroom learning in a real world setting. So we welcome students to consider any 3 of these programs. I'm happy to talk with you about any of them. And all are a great addition to help you prepare for, a life of being an important change maker. So yes, as I've already said, you do need to have another major if you're going to be an environmental studies major. Obviously, if you're a certificate, you also have to have a major to go along with that. This list here is just a list of some of our biggest coordinate majors, and you can see the diversity of some of these backgrounds, from political science to conservation biology, to business majors, engineering majors, majors in the College of Ag and Life Science. We have far more coordinate majors than what's represented on these lists here. These are just our biggest majors. Any major fits with what we are offering students to study with regards to the environment.
Great. And now I'll take a few slides to talk about the certificate in engineering for energy sustainability. So as the name suggests, this certificate is based in the College of Engineering, but it's open to any undergraduate major on campus. And we've actually made some changes to the program in the last year or so to make it even more accessible. But really the focus of this certificate is on energy technology and sustainability. Since energy is a major contributor to greenhouse gas emissions, it's a big part of our economy. We need to be transitioning our energy sources to more sustainable systems. And so this certificate really allows you to specialize in energy technology issues. It's interdisciplinary, very much like the environmental studies programs, and some of the classes overlap with some of the environmental studies programs as well. But there's an emphasis on engineering as part of the certificate that is a requirement for the program. So we just got a new attendee. Wanted to welcome you. We are recording this in case you missed if you missed the first part, and we'll be taking questions toward the end of this info session. So the course requirements for the Engineering for Energy Sustainability Certificate, it's 16 credits. There are 4 categories of courses. You can see liberal studies and science, engineering. There is an optional capstone component to it, where if you do a senior design project, an independent research project, something that's kind of applied hands-on project, if that's something that you're doing for your major already and you focus it on an energy topic, you can get credit toward the certificate for that. There's also a 1 credit seminar that's part of it as well. So the first 2 categories, you can see there's a minimum of 6 credits, including 1 foundational course in each of those categories. And then the 3 additional credits you can get either from the capstone or from one of those top 2 categories of courses. So some of the example courses, these are for the first 2 categories, these are the foundational courses that are in the curriculum so far. So you would need to take at least 1 of these from the liberal studies and science category and 1 from the engineering category. As the program advisor, I can help in terms of seeing where these fit in with your major. If you're outside of engineering, I can kind of direct you to which courses are more accessible to students outside of engineering. And I mentioned the capstone again. You can do senior design, independent study, directed study. There's lots of different names for those sorts of hands-on applied courses. I also teach the seminar listed here, EP 602, Sustainable Energy Challenges and Solutions. And that's just an opportunity to hear from a lot of different researchers on campus to talk about their work in sustainable energy.
Scott, can I also add on that screen?
Sure.
Oh, so many of those actually also count for the environmental studies or sustainability certificate, one or all of those. So just as an extra plug.
Right. And you mentioned you looked into how many students cross over that are doing both the engineering for energy sustainability certificate and one of the environmental studies programs. I can't remember what was the number that you found.
There's currently 12 students who are in both the energy certificate and one of our programs. Yep.
Great. And we'll talk about later about, we'll have a snapshot of which programs you can take together. And then some of the feedback that we've gotten from students, and these are things that we kind of mentioned toward the beginning of this info session. One is just showing to employers that you have a passion for this area and a specialization in this area. It's an interdisciplinary program, much like the environmental studies programs. And there's other networking opportunities, among students, among alumni. There's other events going on that are connected that I help put on with the Energy Institute that can connect you to professionals in the energy field. So there's lots of different opportunities to get connected and further your career. And going back to kind of the high level, all these programs provide very similar benefits. We talked about we need people from all walks of life, all disciplines to really help us transition the world to more sustainable energy and environmental systems. And so I took this from a nonprofit called Focus the Nation, and it shows sort of different categories or quadrants of environmental leaders. And I like this sort of framework because I think it allows everyone to see what part they can play in the kind of, creating a more sustainable world. So whether you're more drawn to political factors like the politicos, that's more kind of the advocacy or policy. The technicians are more the hands-on builders and people working on the infrastructure. The innovators are the engineers and entrepreneurs, the scientists who are working on new technology, new businesses. And then the storytellers, the journalists and teachers and artists that can kind of share this story. You might find yourself kind of overlapping some of these. So, I'm working education. I'm kind of a storyteller myself, but I also see myself as a part politico as well. And I have a background in policy from the LaFault School here at UW-Madison.
Yeah, I'll add that I think it does represent the plethora of opportunities for students who are interested in going in this direction. That other major might represent your quadrant, but the underlying thing are all of these are environmental impact. I just had an appointment this morning with a student who's an environmental studies major and a Spanish major who is pretty set on going into environmental law, particularly with an international bend to it. So you can see where sort of the combination of those things really starts to develop for students on how they're going to plug those things in. So it's very, very exciting to me to be able to work with students who hopefully are going to fix this mess. No pressure.
And some sort of final resources to share and advice to share. The first is to contact Becky or myself to get more information. We provided a taste of what these programs are about. There's more details on the UW guide or on our websites, but we can definitely help you kind of figure out how to plug these programs into what you want to accomplish for your education and for your career. And then the others that are listed here are getting informed. You can get a taste of these programs just by taking one of the foundational courses and see which ones you like and whether you want to kind of go any further in those programs. And both the Energy Institute and the Nelson Institute hold lots of events, and we try to keep students and members of the public plugged into a lot of the events going on around energy and environment and sustainability. So you can see some of the links there, which we can provide to attendees afterwards if you missed getting these links right now. There's lots of student organizations to get involved with as well, and leadership opportunities. The Office of Sustainability has a good website listing all the sustainable related student organizations on campus. There's opportunities for getting involved in internships and research experience. And the Energy Institute website has a number of resources around these topics as well that students can get into. Getting involved in these programs can also lead to study abroad opportunities, volunteers experience. There's lots of ways to get involved beyond the classroom is kind of what the gist of this statement here.
Indeed, there are so many ways to get involved that when I talked to Scott yesterday, I likened it to Woodman's, if you're familiar with Woodman's grocery store, that sometimes it can be paralyzing to have so many choices, but there's a lot of variety because we know students have lots of different interest levels here. The Facebook page that's listed here is a place that we use for environmental studies as our engagement calendar. So anything that we know about that's happening in or around campus, presentations, book clubs, internships get listed there. That's a good sort of collective space. So we invite anybody to follow along on that Facebook page. But I think number one is this can be a little overwhelming because there are so many things happening at the UW-Madison campus that if you're at all interested and don't know where to get started, just contact us and we can take it from there and help point you in the right direction among the many directions that are possible on our campus.
Great. And then this is sort of a recap of things we talked about already, but it might be helpful to have it all in kind of one single snapshot. So you can see the different major and the three different certificates. They're all interdisciplinary. They're all open to all undergraduates. None of them are standalone, so you have to have a major to go along with it. You can see the differences in credit totals. One thing we mentioned is that some of these you can take together. So, the environmental studies major you can take either with the sustainability certificate or the engineering for energy sustainability certificate. Or you can take the environmental studies certificate along with the engineering for energy sustainability certificate. And there's opportunities for kind of overlap and, credits can be applied to both programs. So you don't necessarily have to take any extra courses. And then toward the bottom is just kind of a one sentence summary of what the focus is for each of these programs. And then Becky had this, I didn't realize it had so many steps to it before including an
little action going on this screen. Yeah, so this is a slide that I've used before to just represent the wide variety of potential career paths that students can go into, and literally is just about anything. So, environmental law and policy or green business and sustainable practices, strategic communications. I've got quite a few students now who've gone into different media jobs after graduation, managing social media for different organizations working on, any environmental cause, fill in the blank. From environmental education to working for the DNR to ecotourism, which is becoming a huge thing these days. So, when students ask me like, well, what can I do with my environmental studies major? Again, the answer is like literally whatever you want to do. And that's the important thing, right? Is to figure out where your skills are, where your passion is, what your interests entail, and finding that magic place that allows you to work on all of those fronts at the same time. And any one of these four programs is going to allow you the opportunity to really amplify that interest.
Yeah, I agree. I get the same sorts of questions. Where do people end up, or what's the best major? And it's there's so many different opportunities. It's really finding what your niche is and being able to tell your story, and kind of taking all your collective experiences and your skills and being able to find the right pathway for yourself.
Exactly. And literally, in my world, every single student on campus should study one of our four programs because we need that in the world.
Yeah, I think there was someone from UW Extension a while ago that said every job should become a green job because we need it.
That is for certain. I think that was the last one to come up there.
All right. So I'm going to stop the recording now so we have that preserved, and then we'll take some time for questions.